Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for the second Tableau user group meeting, the YEG Tableau user group meeting of 2020. I just want to have a quick introduction as there's some new names in here. My name is Hins Chan and I am the administrator for the Edmonton Tableau user group. I work at Onware, and while I do Tableau for mostly business cases, I also do it for fun. As you can see, this is something that I was building for our golf tournament this year, golf season that happened in the summer. But I don't want to take too much time as I want to give the speakers as much time as possible. Again, I'm excited to see what all the leaders in our local community are doing with Tableau. And today we have Fraser from Onware, Jason Scarlett, Fraser Gallup from Onware, Jason Scarlett from AHS, Shane Hubick and Brandi Gutfriend from Tableau. Sorry if I messed up your name. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A box. And without further ado, let's introduce our first speaker, which is Fraser Gallup from Onware. I just closed it. You can share it now. It's on you.
Okay, we're in the same location, so I'm just like telling him to mute his mic so that we're not talking over each other. So let me share my screen here and we can get started. So I can't remember how long ago it was. I did do a presentation and talked a little bit about prep at a user group meeting in the before times, before COVID, and that was also when prep was very new, and so we've done a lot of work with prep kind of since then. So I'm going to share some of the kind of lessons learned and things that we've done with prep kind of since the early days. So just a couple of slides I wanted to show just to give a bit of a background on things before we jump into it. But lots of it I want to do is actual like demo and show you a sample prep flow. I'm Fraser with Onware. You can see my video. Obviously, I thought I'd put this up anyway, though. That's my first Tableau conference there, and it was like 5 years ago. So that's it seems like a milestone that it's been 5 years, and you know, it'll be interesting to participate in it this year. The other thing I noticed is that the picture on the right of the family there is totally out of date because we have a 2-year-old toddler running around our house and causing havoc right now. So I had to text my wife and say we need a proper family picture for my Tableau presentations. So that'll come at some point. Who we are, what we do. Onware is a Tableau partner. We do a lot of work with customers kind of all over the place. Started as a Tableau partner in 2011, and with the changes in the partner program that are kind of being put in this year, we've actually we're starting to establish our office in Texas now. So that's kind of happening virtually, I'd say. Right now we're not physically present and don't intend to be physically present in Texas anytime soon, but we do have our office getting started there. We're working with clients kind of across Canada and the United States. So a lot of the things that we're doing is working on data connections. We have a lot of experience like with construction industry, that type of data, getting into more and more prep and ETL type tasks. So that's kind of why I wanted to highlight this today. Also, of course, you know, building out dashboards and starting to talk best practices in the context of, you know, Tableau blueprint and how people can do things better. So that's a lot of what we do from day to day. But today I'm going to talk about prep. So we'll be focused on lots of prep stuff. The example that I'm going to use, and I want to give you some context of kind of what's going into this. It's a company that was actually previously 5 companies, and they went through consolidation, kind of merger process that's been kind of ongoing for a few years ago. But essentially, each of these 5 companies were in the same line of business. So they're processing orders. They have orders coming in, you know, thousands of orders on a daily basis. They need to process those orders and kind of get them fulfilled for the customers. So there's many shared customers between the different business units, but essentially the business units were all running a legacy system that did the same thing. So the data structure, even though it was different, it was very similar data across all those different companies. So what we've done is we've actually used Tableau Prep to kind of consolidate all of their historical orders coming in, along with the current active orders, so that we can have a really rich data source for supporting a lot of their operations. So the inputs that are coming in, we have 4 SQL Server connections. All of those are custom SQL that we've done kind of in concert with their DBAs. So some of it was like, you know, us telling them, you know, this is how we want the data to be structured, so it'll work well in Tableau, and some of it was a bit of back and forth. We also incorporate one of the business units. They've kind of retired the system, but they exported everything as a CSV. So we're bringing that into our prep flow for legacy. And then we also have various Excel mapping files, and I'll talk a little bit more about those later. But it's just kind of, because we have a lack of, you know, accessibility to the databases to put certain things in there, that's where we're relying on Excel. So that's kind of our inputs. And then our outputs at the end of the day, we have a couple big dashboards to show, you know, everyone from their operations team, you know, what are the workable orders that are outstanding. You know, we have an executive dashboard that gets into lots of different pieces. But this was one of the things that really got success in this company and has pushed a lot of things with Tableau, is having the executive dashboard. So even though we had initially built out some stuff for the operations teams, it was once we got the executive in there with their dashboard, and then they started asking questions about things, it really made a lot of other people move towards what we were doing in Tableau. So there's lots of different outputs, all from kind of one single data source that we're producing. So I think with that, I'm gonna, oh no, one more, sorry. I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more. Let's just go over there, and we'll start looking at it, and maybe I'll come back to this if I have time. I'm gonna have people kicking me if I take too long. So let's close that. I'll go over to prep. So this is the flow. If you're not familiar with Tableau Prep, you know, it's essentially a tool that's going to let you connect to your data, just like Tableau Desktop. There's lots of different data sources available in here. And you can connect directly to data right from inside of Prep. The way that we use Prep is we actually publish all of our data sources to Tableau Online, and then we consume those published data sources within Tableau Prep. The reason that we do that is partly because some of the data sources are quite large, you know, millions of rows of data, and it just becomes too slow to have it load the data within Prep by trying to connect to the systems. So it's actually a little bit more fast to just connect to Tableau servers. And it also gives us the control, like with Tableau Online, if we need to go and refresh the data sources, we can just do that independently of our Prep flow and have things flow in here nicely. So, you know, every data source that you see here, even if it's an Excel mapping file, we just publish that all to the Tableau server and then consume it within our Prep flow. So I'm just gonna zoom out here a little bit just to show you like kind of an overview. That's the entire flow kind of end to end. And you can see there's quite a bit of different moving pieces that are taking place in here. I'm going to focus in on kind of this top left quadrant first. So like I mentioned, there's 5 different systems that we're bringing into this flow. And it's the 5 different SQL queries and legacy systems that represent each of the companies. So what we did is one of the nice things with Prep is that you can actually color code all your steps. So you can kind of just see we've added the color coding in here so that each of these inputs have a unique color. I'm just going to focus in on one of these rows to kind of start with here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can kind of see. You know, so some of the things that we're doing, we're pretty much using every feature of Prep in this flow. So that's why I kind of picked it as a good example. So we'll, you know, for things like calculated fields, sometimes you need to do a translation. So the thing that we're getting from the database here is, you know, it's a field called is open. It's either 1 or 0. But to match better with the other data sources, we want to create a calculated field called simply open and have that be true and false. So using the same syntax as you have in Tableau Desktop, you can make a calculated field here to transform the data. So I've done that in this first step, and you can actually see the second piece here that I've done is I've actually removed the is open field because I don't need that in my consolidated data source. So kind of your calculating fields, you're kind of cleaning up as you go. And you can kind of see as I go through this, there's many different steps. You can have multiple changes in each step, but just to make it easier to read and find things that are happening, kind of recommend splitting it up to many different steps, each into like a similar unit of work. So you'll kind of see like this piece here where I'm calculating a business unit identifier and putting in the source. I've actually got the same step happening across my different data sources here. So if I scroll down, you'll see there's a source kind of on all of these. So just to make it more readable. So there's other things here that happen. Departments is the light blue line. That's doing a Excel mapping. One of the things that we do here when we're joining in external data sources, this is like something that I'd kind of highly recommend when you're doing joins to kind of keep yourself sane, is some of these join fields we don't actually need on our output. So what I've actually done is when I brought in the Excel, I've actually went through and I've removed all the different fields that I don't need as part of my results. The second piece here is renaming some of the fields that I'm actually going to join on because I want to remove those after the join. So I just kind of rename them and put the delete notification identifier on them. So after my join happens, I'll actually go and I'll remove those fields from the output. The joins themselves, if you're familiar with Tableau Desktop, again, this is a similar kind of experience. It's a little bit more graphical and nice to deal with. So you can actually see, like, you know, the left side of your join, your input on your right side of your join, and what the result is. One of the things I would caution though, when you're using these, one of the defaults when you're bringing in data sources here is that it actually uses a sample of your data to start with. So in this case, where I have like 2 million orders on my data source, it's actually not going to bring in the full data source when it's doing the prep flow. You can choose to do that if you want. I don't want to because I'd be waiting here for hours waiting for the whole thing to load. But when you look at the join and it's giving you these row counts here, remember that this is using just a sample of your data. It's not using all your data necessarily. So you may want to like think about that when doing joins. One of the other things I'll mention too while I'm on the screen, I'm just showing you a view that's giving you a list of the columns as part of the results. There is a preview view as well. I'm not going to show you that just because this is client data that I don't necessarily want everyone to see. So that's why you're getting this view instead of the preview. Kind of next step here, what we do is we kind of go into a union where we're pulling all the different data sources together. This step doesn't actually do anything. We just put an extra step in here going into the union that names our data sources. And you'll see why, because when you go into the union step, it actually shows the previous step as the input. So just to name it and be able to see kind of what's happening here, that's just a kind of nice to have best practice type thing when you're dealing with unions. It's a very visual interface, so you can actually see, like, you know, the days on hold field. I've got data over 3 of my 5 data sources. In this case, there's just 2 data sources that don't have that field, so I'm kind of fine with that. If things aren't matching up, they'll show here, and you can use the union to line them up, even if the fields are not named the same. You can use this view to tell it which fields map to each other. Lots of times what we do is we actually name the fields consistently. Another thing to watch for if you're doing unions, Tableau Prep is very picky about data types. So for things like, you know, IDs, if you have strings and IDs, or strings and integers for your IDs, Prep will complain about that. So typically what we're doing is switching everything to a string because that's the lowest common denominator, even though it may not necessarily perform the best. So that's a union. We're doing more things here, post union, because it's the same kind of treatment that we're going to do across all the different data sources. So kind of here you'll see just additional joins happening where we bring in additional data sources. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit here. Lots of unions. This is another input that we have down here. This is it's the output of another prep flow that we're running. So we have another prep flow. This is the operations one that has information about the orders. We also have another one that we're doing that has information about the financial impact of these orders. So how much revenue is being generated from them. And so that's actually an input into this flow. Now, the main flow here, the main line that I have up top is 1 row per order. So we just have each of the orders in there. The invoice, this green line, is actually 1 line per invoice that went for that order. And there could be multiple invoices. So this is where we use an aggregate. And we actually just group everything together. We're just interested to know, the total amount that was invoiced for that order. So we use the aggregate function to change the level of detail from individual invoices to just, total revenue for the order. And so we can bring that into our data source as well. We do some date calculations in here as well. One of the things that we want to know is, how many days was an order worked? How many days was an order open for? So there's lots of different date calculations that are happening. One of the challenges was to look at, only business days, right? We want to only count business days that the order could have been worked. So that's taking out holidays, taking out weekends from that. So that's part of the calculations that are going on here. Basically at the end of the day, we get to this output and we're outputting things back to our Tableau server. So we run the whole flow, kind of gets to the end and then uploads back to the Tableau server. So, if I run this in Tableau Prep on my desktop, it's kind of got to go through the process of downloading all the data from the Tableau server, running through all the steps, and then uploading it back to the Tableau server. So for a small data source, that can take 30 seconds. For something big like this probably takes on the order of 15 to 20 minutes on a wired broadband connection, which is not terrible, but it's a significant amount of time to wait if you're doing tweaks and that sort of thing. So what we've done with this client is we actually deployed them the data management add-on to their Tableau Online. So you can actually see here, this flow takes just under 10 minutes or just over 10 minutes to run. We run it on a daily basis. It generates six and a bit million rows as the output from this. And one of the great things with having the data management add-on is that we get the monitoring. So, it's going to run on a schedule. It's going to tell us if it fails. So you can see last week there were a few failures that happened because we made changes to some of the data sources. So it notifies us right away if that happens. We can go in and fix it and rerun the flow. So it's kind of been a savior on this to have the data management add-on, because we wouldn't want to run it in prep on the desktop. So that's kind of a big thing for us to be able to have that as a tool. We've also tried deploying prep with other clients and just running it on desktop and trying to script it locally, and it just kind of, it's not as reliable. It's harder to monitor. So the data management add-on, I'd highly recommend it if you're using any kind of prep flows in a production environment. It's almost a must-have. So it was really good to be able to deploy that. So I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint for a second here, see if I can switch screens. Oops. Okay, so just go back here just to kind of wrap things up. Yeah, so the flow is running using data management. 6.2 million rows are output. One of the things that we do with this is, we're changing it on an ongoing basis. So it's not something that's static and sitting in place, but it is being used by many different people within the organization in a production kind of environment. So one of the things that we do is when we're rolling out changes to this, we actually publish the data source into a separate testing project. And we have a dashboard that compares the two data sources. So we just do like a very high level sanity check and look at the number of records and the percent difference between the changed prep flow and the currently production prep flow. So we're kind of doing those checks before we roll it into production. It's a quick process, but you know, we've been kind of burned where we rolled things out and you know, we get a call 15 minutes later from one of the vice presidents saying, you know, how come this has turned negative on me? And you kind of know, like, you know, it takes 10 minutes to run the flow. So you want to do these checks ahead of time before you roll it out. So we kind of got a little bit of a change management process. I also want to mention the idea of flows upon flows. So you can have, you know, the output of flows run into other flows. One of the things that we do as a kind of follow-on product is we want to look at aging and the back orders. So we want to say, like, for any given day, how many orders were open on that day. So what we're doing is we actually take that orders consolidation that we run that generates 6 million rows, and we join it against the date file. So we can say for any given day, you know, is an order open? How many orders were open? What was the aging on that day? The output of that is actually 181 million rows, which seems like crazy, and like how does that work? And it's actually like shocking that Tableau online can like process that data source and show us data like instantly. So that's you know, almost a use case again, like yay Tableau online, because it can handle that, and it can display it in a dashboard that's like totally responding to users and refreshing and filtering within a few seconds. So that's just really great that we can provide that. So yeah, that's you know, I didn't really get into anything too deeply, but as an overview of what's possible with Tableau Prep, you know, we use it every day. We're relying on it more and more as time goes on, and it's kind of went. I was a little bit lukewarm with it, you know, a couple of years ago when I first presented it, and now it's like, you know, almost couldn't live without it as one of our daily tools that we use with many different uses. So. That's all I had. I probably am out of time for questions, so we'll turn it back to Hinz.
If anybody has any questions, please use the Q&A box from the Zoom panel, I guess.
So Jason's question was just any tips to help document the workflows for new users. Yeah, there's kind of two things that we do for documentation. One is, you know, just within the steps themselves, you know, we try to put some, you know, name them descriptively of what's going on. But we actually produce like a big Word document that kind of includes all the assumptions, and you know, if we're doing any mapping of codes from one business unit to another, we actually produce that big Word documentation, and that's kind of like for the business analysts that are looking at it that aren't necessarily running prep, they can go and refer to that. One of the things that was mentioned at Tableau conference last year was the idea of being able to edit your prep flows within the browser. And I'm still looking forward to seeing that at some point, because I think that would be really great for especially like the analyst role, if they could look at that in a read-only mode to be able to see what's going on in individual steps, but not necessarily be able to change them. But the other one, oh, sorry, we'll just go to the next question here. What convinced you to make the jump switch? The question is, what convinced you to make the jump switch to using Tableau Prep is just the complexity of what the business requirements were and what we needed to do. Like if we wanted to try doing it in Tableau Desktop, it would just be like, I think we'd be like banging our heads against the wall trying to get it to do that. So we're, you know, you saw the amount of steps that we have in that prep flow. That's kind of necessitated it. So we never did look at Alteryx as like an alternative, more because prep was, you know, free. So it was easier for us to get started with prep instead of like going and looking at other stuff. Another question, are you using the write back to database? No, we're not using write back to database yet. There has been some discussion with the client about doing that because they do have other things that are happening that may want to make use of our data. So we have had some discussions, we just haven't moved forward with that yet. Another question, thank you. You mentioned about the date calculations. Were those calculations done in Tableau Prep or before data was brought into Tableau Prep? Here, I can show you a couple examples here. If we go back into the flow here. So this was a really simple one that we did a couple different times. Let's go back to here. So this one was, we have a data source that has a list of holiday dates. So the company has their, they have a database table that has, you know, dates and what the holidays were. So when we join that in, the join that we do for that, oh, that was a simple example. That was just, you know, matching the date. Is it on a holiday date? Was the order created on a holiday date? Was it closed on a holiday date? There's another one, I think, later on that's a little bit more complicated here. Yeah, so if this one is, if it was within, it looks at a range. But yeah, we're using date calculations inside of Tableau Prep to do that. And it works really well, actually. I spend significant amounts of time during any given week on Tableau date calculations, and they work quite well. So that, you know, using date diffs, date adds, those type of functions, get to know them, become friends with them. I'd highly recommend that. You can do some really interesting things. So.
All right, any other questions? If not, we were originally going to take a break, but maybe we should move on to Jason just to give him a little bit more time before we'll take a break after Jason. And Jason, are you okay with speaking now, or do you want to take a break first? He's on mute, I think.
There you go. The double mute again. Right now is good.
Okay, so sounds good.
Yeah, so thanks for the invite, and it's always good to talk to the Tableau community here in Alberta, so it's good to share this stuff with you. My talk here today is really just about COVID from my perspective. There are lots of analysts at AHS working on COVID-related work over the past 6 months, and I thought I would just share a little bit about what I've seen from my perspective, from my desk. So a little bit about me. I'm an industrial engineer by training, went to the University of Calgary, went to work at a company called SMED, later Hayworth, worked there for a number of years, doing sort of typical quality control, automation type work. After that, I returned to school and went and I did my PhD in engineering. And while I was doing my PhD in engineering on scheduling, real-time scheduling, I started to do some simulation work with the Foothills Hospital here in Calgary, and that turned into a full-time job, and I've been with AHS now for 13 years. So that's sort of how I came over to the healthcare sector. A lot of the math and simulation modeling work that you do in engineering is very similar to what you would do in a hospital service area. So the queuing system theory is all the same. But I thought I'd play a little fun game here. This is obviously about COVID, but my question here is label the axis. What do you think this represents? So this is a sort of a 6-month view, some trends there. And I thought I would visualize it, you know, in a couple of different ways. That's one with the line chart. And I'm not even sure what you'd call that thing at the bottom. It looks like a diffraction grating if you know your physics, but that's what it looks like to me. Here's another way of viewing the same data, a little bit of a scatter plot-ish type thing on the bottom there. And then just some bars with the weekends. So the question is, what is that? It started around March 8th or 9th or so, and it started to accelerate up until the mid-March. I can't see the chat window, but you can guess in there, but no worries. that is actually my email inbox. Those are the number of emails I was getting per day when this whole COVID thing sort of started. A little bit ahead, I think the first case was late February or so. And by early mid-March, I think we had some cases. I think in the Edmonton emergency department is where we started to first get the calls to ask us what's going on, what's the trend, what are we gonna do with this thing that's coming to Alberta. So it's been pretty hectic, but the way I look at the whole analytics workflow is sort of three pillars: data, analysis, and communication, informed decisions. And so I'm going to walk through here today just sort of three elements of my experience through these three sectors. So the data. At Alberta Health Services, we take care of the delivery arm of the acute care side of things primarily. There's long-term care and primary care as well, but I'm going to focus mainly on the acute care side of things. There are folks that work on those other areas as well, but our main bread and butter is sort of the acute care side of things. And so the first thing that happened was the need to pull together a lot of these data sets. We have a lot of different analysts, probably maybe 800 analysts working on different things from finance to IT to clinical systems. And with COVID, everybody had similar questions. They wanted to know where were these patients, how many were there, that type of information. And so we knew very quickly that it was important to wrangle the data and sort of get it into a place that everyone could access it. So we sort of just set up a schema in our Oracle environment, our data warehouse, and started to allow people in and started to share it. And so it was quite the experience to see people from many different departments, probably 20, 30 different departments, start to come in and share data. Some people would bring the data sets that they had access to, and other people were simply consuming the data out of there. And so that was the first thing that really happened. It was sort of a good example of how we came together pretty quickly. Within probably a couple of weeks, we started having data in there and started sharing it between the different teams. So it's been great. It had a lot of challenges because teams have different expectations. Some people want pure, clean data sets. Other people are more of the mindset of just show me the data. I don't care what shape it's in, just give it to me as quickly as possible. Let me start using it and figure it out. So different expectations, but we've sort of been trying to wrestle and wrangle and get everybody onto the same page. But it's been fun, it's been challenging. The analysis side, so looking at patterns and mining the data. Very quickly, a lot of our existing dashboards started to show some interesting trends. So this one here is just showing the daily emergency department visits for the top, is it the top 20 sites here? I think the top 20 sites here across the province. And you can see on the left side is just a 1 week sort of view of the pattern within the hospital. But on the right side, the top right, you can see the overall pattern across the entire province. And so you can see there come mid-March when sort of the lockdown orders started to go out. We had some cases and they were spreading and there was some, concern. And so people stayed away from the emergency department. We went from 3,900 down to 1,700 visits. And so that's a huge drop. That's a 50% drop. So that was quite interesting. This is just one of our existing dashboards that we used, and it showed very quickly that things changed. And it also shows that we haven't returned to, quote, normal. We're hovering around that 3,000 visits per day mark right now. So we're still down a good 20, 30% of emergency department visits. Another one here is just the occupancy. So this is the number of patients that are in the hospital. And again, for those major facilities. And again, we can see there was a shutdown. They started to reduce the surgeries they were doing. And so very quickly, the hospitals were emptying out in preparation of what might be a wave of COVID patients. It never came to fruition, which is good, but the preparation work went in pretty quickly. And within really 3 weeks, we were able to make a fair amount of space in the hospital for incoming COVID patients. And again, it was running at around that 95% occupancy. I think we're hovering around 90% now. So we're still a little bit below, but not as much as the emergency department. And then the initial analysis. So initially, back in March, a lot of the information was coming out of China, and we were looking at their statistics on positivity rate and fatality rate and all these different things. And so a lot of the early modeling that you've probably seen in the media was based on that early information coming out of China and trying to apply it to Alberta. It didn't always work. The numbers, I'm not sure how well they represent Alberta and North America and Western countries as well. I mean, you look at Italy and Spain versus the US versus Canada, things have happened quite differently. And so as things have rolled out, we've had to adjust models. And so we have a great population public health group. They've done a lot of modeling, sort of projecting forward what they think might happen under various scenarios of various degrees of lockdown. But this visualization here to me is the one that sort of is the cream of the crop. It sort of explains what's going on. And this is one that shows the patient outcome based on their underlying health conditions and their age. And so we all kind of have a sense that the people that are older are more vulnerable, and the people that have more underlying health conditions are more vulnerable. And so you can see here the age cohorts and then the number of underlying health conditions. And really the orange and red ones are the ones, and yellow are the ones who passed away. And you can see that it's primarily the old 60 plus, 70 plus, and the ones with 10 or more, 15 or more underlying health conditions. So that kind of gives you a sense of the population that is being hit the hardest. We also start to look at some information in terms of the growth. How quickly is this spreading? And so there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can use a doubling rate where you're trying to see how many days until the cases doubles. The other one is an R estimate, which is essentially if one person is infected, how many more people does that one person infect? So how quickly is it spreading from one person to the next? So that orange line on the bottom represents very early on, for every case infected, they were infecting 2 more people or 2.5 more people. And obviously at that rate, you get some pretty explosive growth. And so you can see how these two correlate. So when you get a growth in the infection rates, you end up with a case explosion. And so that's kind of what happened. And the pattern has sort of cycled up and down. This one is showing it for the entire province. So it's a little bit tricky to read because different zones and different cities will have outbreaks and they will have their own curve to show it. But when you pool it all together as a province, it kind of masks some of the individual geography patterns that are going on. In Calgary, I think Calgary was really the early outbreaks. We had a lot of international travel. We had some stuff happen in the long-term care facilities and the meat packing plants. But then in the middle here is more of an Edmonton thing going on. So kind of interesting to watch this. And right now, I mean, it's hovering down around the 1 mark, which is why it's been relatively flat. Even though the cases seem to be kind of climbing up a little bit, there's some delays and the types of people that are being tested can affect it as well. So there's a lot of nuances going on behind this. And so this is something we use to predict the number of admissions coming to the hospital in the near term. And then finally, presentations. So lots of people interested, lots of questions going on, and lots of I'd say pressure to say, tell us what's going to happen, really. And so a lot of people came together and were working on different areas. So we have people working in the staffing side of things, looking at people who are sick, people who are in isolation, looking at who can swap out their job functions when there's an issue in a certain area. We have people looking at the population side of things, tracking, tracing, looking at all the people that are infected and helping the contact tracing activities. We have people looking at the lab tests and the turnaround times on the lab tests. We have people looking at the inpatient side, length of stays, ICUs and fatality rates and all of those things. So lots of different people working on a lot of different activities. And this is just a dashboard that summarizes some of the popular ones that we pulled together. So we have sort of a landing page that people can come to and see some of the common dashboards. But really, the question that kept popping up early on was, what do we need to prepare for? And so I sort of sat down and thought about it. And I said to myself, if I was in their position, what would I want to see? A lot of times people don't get the right question. They come to you asking for a specific number. They say, can you tell me how many of this, or something along those lines? And it might not be the exact question. And so that's why I sort of, sat down, cleared my head and said, what would I want to see? And so I sort of took my kids' felts and I drew this diagram here, sort of chart, to say this is what I want to see. And you can see, obviously, we're talking about ICU beds 4. This was very early on. This is, March, I think it says March 15th there. So very early on, this was sort of my picture of what I wanted to see from a visualization. It's fairly simple, fairly clear. So I went about trying to build it. And this is what it turned out to be. So this is our Tableau version of it. The black line is the number of patients in the hospital with COVID-19. And then on the far right, you can see some projections based on that R naught value you saw earlier. It factors that in and says, okay, where do we think this is going to go from here? And so we have a 5-10-day forecast going forward, high, medium, low. And that's sort of the one that we share. And that one's been viewed, I think, close to 20,000 times or something like that. So it's quite a popular one. I think very early on, it was comforting to people to see the actual numbers, because some of the numbers that were thrown out there were quite large and quite scary. Saying 5,000 inpatient beds needed. We only have like 9,000. So there were some big numbers thrown out there. And I think very early on, the feedback was this was comforting to see a model, a projection. This is the third version of it, but it gave them a little bit of a sense of where things might go and what the magnitude was. Even under a high growth rate, it still gave them an idea. Right now we're hovering around the 60 mark, 50 mark, and it could grow to 90, but we're thinking it's going to stay in that 60 to 70 range for the next week. So that's all I have to share with you today. Just my perspective on what I've seen with COVID to date. Happy to open it up and see if there are any questions out there. So I'm going to hop over to if I can find the meeting controls. Here we go. So what was the rationale for changing the line thickness on the R estimate? Oh, good questions. Let me think. Sometimes I just play with line thickness, something we don't use that often sometimes, I think. I believe the line thickness, it should say, this is, here, it says line thickness represents cases per day. So that's what the line thickness is. How many cases were there per day? So just trying to give you a sense of the volume behind it. So that's sort of what that was. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think I threw it on there very early on, and this has stayed the same for probably 4 months now. Not sure if it still works. I think just the moving average is probably okay, but it adds a little something. So. Okay. Oh, I don't think I'm seeing all of the chat. Oh. So excellent work, thank you. How do you manage feedback from your clients? We have a hard time enough getting people asking the questions to respond to anything we make. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of data literacy that needs to go on. I would say a couple of things. So working in AHS, our clientele, the clinicians, are quite smart, quite bright, but they're not technical. They're not math people typically. And so you have to put it into terms that they can understand. This chart here, I think, is very simple. And because of its simplicity, it's quite popular. It's very easy for us as analysts to over-design something. This is a single line chart. I could have very easily put 6 different charts on here, put some more bars on there, and put something else just to you know, hammer the point away. But I think the simplicity of this one is really what helps. So if you're having trouble engaging your clients, try to simplify it. Make sure that they're understanding the key takeaway messages. After this, we have lots of other dashboards that will show other gory details. If they want to go down to the record level, they can do that. But for starting, I would hammer on something that's very simple and make sure everybody has that same level set context as to where to go from here. So that's what I would say. Beyond that, yeah, it can be challenging. People will ask you for something, you'll deliver it, and we can monitor who's watching the dashboards, and they're not really engaged. And I think a part of that is that they might have asked a question, they got the answer, and maybe it didn't resonate with them. It didn't confirm their suspicion. Maybe it answered their question. They no longer have it. So really go back and ask them why they want that question. What's the motivation behind it? So that's what I would do as well. So in this case, it really was, I think the question I had here was, what do they want to know as a leadership team? What would they want to see in order to manage this? And that was the key question for me, and that's what formulated this dashboard. If you can get to the why behind the question, then that might help, I think. Okay, so that looks like the last question. Not sure if there's any more.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Again, if you guys have any additional questions that you might have later on, feel free to put it into the Q&A. And if we have time at the end, we'll ask the speakers to answer them. But for now, I think we can take maybe a 10-minute break. We're a little early right now. So we can be back at about 3, and then we'll continue with Shane and Brandi.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Shane Hubick. I'm Enterprise Account Manager for Alberta, Saskatchewan, along with my colleague Brandi. I'm just going to quickly go through just a highlight Tableau conference, which starts here in a couple of weeks. You know, most of you probably have heard us speak before, either at the Tableau user group in Edmonton or in Calgary. We've both been with the organization for 4+ years now and look after some of the largest accounts, non-public sector here in Alberta. So excited to be here. Appreciate Onware inviting us to present and just kind of touch on a little bit about Tableau Conference, because it's going to be a little bit different this year. For those of you who've actually been to Tableau Conference, it's one of the highlights of the year for Tableau and its data community. It's such a great experience for those that have actually been there. I know that some of the Onware folks have been down to Tableau Conference. We saw that picture from 5 years ago with Chewbacca, so that was great. It is definitely an amazing experience. Those that have been to any technology events, this has definitely got a different flavor to it and a different passion and a different feel. But this year, with what's going on in the world, and you know, it's kind of a good segue from what Jason talked about with AHS and the COVID outbreak. We're doing a little bit different this year, which is no surprise. We're doing it virtually. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through just some of the highlights. I'm not going to get too deep, and we can open up for discussion and Q&A. And if anybody has some great stories about their Tableau conference experience, I'd love to hear them at the end of this. And we can unmute your line and hopefully tell a story or two. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what's in store for us at Tableau Conference this year. It's going to be as much as the same as possible, but we're calling it, it's going to be a little different-ish. As you can imagine, being definitely in terms of virtual, we have to do it with a little bit of a twist this year. So let's just kind of go through some of the highlights. Tableau Conference 2020 starts on October 6th to 8th, and typically we do it in 3 different centers. We do it in the Americas. We also do one in Europe, and we've done one in Asia, APAC as we call it, in the past. This time around, we're going to do it in all 195 countries at the same time. So it's actually almost going to be running 24 hours a day across the globe. So it's going to be great, kind of great synergies, lots of presentations, and the ability for everybody to access these learning paths, connecting with your peers across the globe. And what it's really for is to help deepen that community spirit and really deepen your skills and expand your industry knowledge within Tableau and specifically data. So what does it include? The nice thing about it is, and it's underlined here, it's free. So those that have attended in the past, of course, you got to make travel plans, you got to book a hotel, and you have to pay that $2,000 USD entry fee. This year, you get to take it all in for free. No matter who you're with or where you're at, I recommend registering. And the great thing, again, about being virtual, most of us work from home, you can set your own schedule as well. So you're not obligated or feel obligated that you have to take it all in because you paid good money to be down there. This time around, you can really set your schedule, take in as much of the great content you can, really look at some of the brain dates or networking opportunities that are going to be presenting itself here. So we've broken it down to episodes. We'll kind of go through it a little bit. I'll show you the website, and we'll kind of dig down a little bit deeper here. But first and foremost, for those that have not attended, why would you attend? What's this all about? What's this data community thing? Well, you're part of it now. You're sitting in a Tableau user group, but some of the biggest things that our customers tell us that they get out of a conference is really to get to know the people that are involved, meet with your peers, see what's going on with not just Tableau but in the world of data. Gain some insights and trends, what's coming with Tableau, also advance your skills, learn more about data literacy. That was mentioned by Jason, how important it is for our organizations to become more data literate to compete in the world today. And also build those connections. We're all sharing these common successes and bonds across the world, and what a better way to kind of meet with those peers and talk about what they're challenged with and how they're overcoming them. And as well as, real importantly, is advancing your skills, but it's all about professional growth. Data is becoming more and more valuable as we go forward, especially in an environment that we're at today. Everyone's looking for that common advantage. We've talked to many organizations that are just pushing their business transformation goals from 3 years out to now like 3 months out. How quickly can we use data to understand what our customers want and needs as everything's changing? And how do we make those decisions? So this is one way to help do that, and I hope you can all join us. So let's quickly look at a quick viz. So what I did is I broke it out into Canada. This is as of today. So far today, we have 1,600 people registered across the country, as well as globally. We're up over 71,000. So we're really moving fast. I looked at this viz on Monday, and we're just over 60,000. So in the last 2 days, we've added 10,000 people. I'd expect we'll be well over 100,000 registrants by the time the conference starts. So I encourage everybody that hasn't signed up today to please do so. And it's nice to see Alberta Health Services, that's on the call today, has already 74 registered for attending. But let's go to the website. I'll kind of take you through how we've set it up, how to register. It's pretty easy to figure out how to register. Just type in Tableau Conference, and there's registers now buttons pretty well everywhere. All you need to do is register the information, and then you'll be signed in. You'll get a link, and away you go. So it's just going to be that easy. So what is it all about? Really, we're all about inspiration, connecting, and learning. And of course, we have some amazing speakers that we'll go through as well here. So in the learning side of things, again, it's a three-day conference. We've got definitely some great things that are going on throughout. I'll show you a little bit how to build your schedule and give you some highlights that we feel are important. Again, we're doing it across the globe, so you can see that we're basing it on Pacific time, but if you do sign in, as I am signed in now, the conference should update you to the time zone that you're in. Just be aware of the time zone changes, because in the Americas, we're all doing it on Pacific time, but you will, if you sign in on your location, it should update for you. So there's the schedule. I encourage you to check it out in terms of what we're offering on a daily basis. And we'll give you some quick highlights as well of what's great. You can customize your schedule. And one of the fan favorites as well is if those who have taken it in is the Iron Viz. Everybody's seen the Iron Chef. Imagine getting a data set and you have 20 minutes to build something real cool and getting judged on it. That's what Iron Viz is all about. So take a look at that. So in terms of speakers, always have Adam Zalipsky, who's going to open up and talk a little bit about the innovation and what's going on with Tableau and data worldwide. Recommend that. Francois Agenstadt, which is our CPO, Canadian, which is always nice to say to our Canadian folks. And he's going to talk a little bit about what's happening with Tableau and where we're going as an organization, some of the great and cool things that are coming here in the next 12 months. John Legend, if you're a music fan, is also going to be performing virtually and live to the audience. Those that love astrophysicists and Neil deGrasse and love the cosmos, you can hear him speak and do a fireside chat. And just, there's a ton here, so I'm not going to go through them all, but just wanted to talk a little bit about, we've got those that love sports and statistics, and that might follow 538.com. Nate Silver is going to be joining us. Mark Randolph, co-founder of Netflix. Wade Davis in the NFL. So we got some great stuff coming your way. And again, you can tailor your schedules to make sure you can take as much in as you absolutely can. So how about being connected? And Brandi, I'm going to get Brandi to talk a little bit about it. But again, I mentioned that virtual concert with John Legend live from his home on the first day. And we'll get to the schedule a little bit, but more about the community and actually connecting with us and also others. Brandi, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. So I'll just talk about brain dates first. So these are small meetup groups, just a handful of people usually. When it was done in person, it was probably about 5 people per group. It allows you to expand your network and share knowledge about any topic of your choice. So there's 2 types that you can do now, now that we're doing it virtually. So you can do a one-on-one with someone else, which is 30 minutes. You schedule it at a mutually agreed upon time. So again, be cognizant of it's going to be global. So make sure you're scheduling it at an appropriate time. Or you can do the small groups as well. So that's a 45-minute session, and it would be scheduled by the person who creates the topic. And there's a max of 4 to 5 people. So I actually just checked before we jumped on this call, and some of the topics in group sessions are starting to fill up. So you might see some that are actually already full, but you can also, add another group with a similar theme. Speaking about topics, it can be obviously about anything. I see a lot around building a data culture, visualization best practices. You can also see industry specific. So there's one specific around government. There's also, I saw a couple groups actually for desktop certifications, because a lot of people do, generally when they go down to Tableau conference when it was in person, they do their certifications there as well. I see a lot for data and women again. And then there's specific meetup groups for certain cities. So obviously in Canada, I think we're a smaller community, and we tend to meet up with tugs, and a lot of the people know each other around the Tableau community, but I saw ones for like Atlanta and San Diego, so on and so forth. So a great opportunity to meet with people that want to share their experience around the same type of topics. When you do go to the portal, I'm not sure if Shane's in it right now, that's totally fine, but effectively up at the top, there's going to be a connect and then launch, and effectively it'll just say launch brain dates, and you can scroll through the different type of topics that exist, and or create your own topic.
Sorry, but go ahead, sorry.
Yep, and the other one that I'll just talk to as well is Tableau Doctor. So this is where you can take advantage of the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a Tableau expert. So you can do anything. You can solve technical challenges, review your deployment. You can do a dashboard polish session. So a lot of the times people will bring their dashboards to us, and we'll go over some best practices or ways to kind of zhuzh it up. There are 20 and 45-minute time slots. The 20-minute time slots are generally done with a Zen Master. So Zen Masters aren't usually Tableau employees, but they are experts in certain fields. So usually the 20-minute time slots are specific to an industry or topic, and then you're talking about the Tableau products and how those fit in. The 45-minute sessions are with the Tableau employee, and that's on a wide range of topics related to different Tableau products. Think of the 45-minute sessions as, it's similar to when you log a support ticket. So if anyone's logged a support ticket lately, the queue's been quite long. So, these come and go in waves, but right now it's really long. So think of this as an opportunity, if you do have a support ticket open, or you were thinking about opening one, you might as well sign up for a doctor session, because you'll actually get that 45-minute session with the doctor. They are first come, first serve basis. And these will fill up. So be sure to get on that if that's of interest to you. But the nice thing, again, because it's global, they're offering Tableau sessions at all hours of the day. So you can actually check out one late at night if you want to do that, if you want to do it after work. So we're catering to everyone. Apparently on the note I wrote, or on one of the notes I read, you can book up to 3 sessions per person. So if you have a couple different issues, maybe you want to log a couple doctor sessions.
Awesome. And those are definitely popular. I mean, down in when we're actually in person, there's definitely big lineups, and I think we book a whole conference center just for the Tableau doctors. So it's pretty amazing. And once you register, you can check out our view the Viz Gallery, which gives us the best of all time in terms of our vizzes. And again, you can't miss it once you're on the website. It's register now is all over the place. So I encourage everyone to get on it. And last but not least, how we've set it up this year. This was actually just launched in the last few hours. So timing's perfect for this user group event. But this really gives you the idea of how to set up your schedule. Just wanted to go over a couple things that, from the past history. Brandi and I have been here for about 4 years, but the conferences themselves really are popular. The first 4 sessions or 5 sessions, I guess, here are not conflicting with anything, and they're going to be all live. So again, watching Adam Slipsky, looking at seeing the roadmap for Tableau, which is always popular. Everyone's really excited about seeing the new features that are becoming. And to Fraser's point about Tableau Prep in a browser, hopefully coming to a release near you, maybe even faster. So hopefully we'll see that really quickly, and hopefully we'll talk about that. And then, of course, there's some great ones. We got the Fireside Chat with John Legend, and then, of course, Neil deGrasse will be talking to everyone as well. And you can just go through the days. You can sign up that way. One of the other things that is always really popular is we used to call it Devs on Stage, but now since we're all at home, it's Devs at Desks, and that'll be actually demoing the newest features that are coming down the pipe that everyone's really excited about. So I'd really encourage everyone to take that in.
Sorry, Shane, I just want to pipe in for that. So generally, it is really popular because oftentimes we'll talk, or we'll have someone from our product team go or talk through a road mapping session on what's going to be coming down. But the nice thing about devs, I guess, at desks now is that they're actually doing short clips. So it's usually, 2 to 5 minutes where each one of the developers takes on a different topic, and they actually demo what they're building right now in Tableau to everyone. So, some of the features are just around the corner, but some are actually, maybe a year or 2 even out. So it's pretty neat. Sometimes it's the only time you hear of that product being talked about until it's actually really close to release. So.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. Yeah, definitely one of the most popular sessions at conference. And as you can see, it's all color-coded, which is really broken down into broadcast channels. As you can see here, these are all the channels that you might be looking for. If there's something specifically with public sector or financial services, again, you can just do it color-coded. Or another way to do it is to really just click on what to watch, and you can actually see all of the content. So all the episodes that are either broken down by broadcast channels or the videos on demand that we provided, as well as you can actually search via metadata, or you can actually look at role, which is analyst, data leader, IT. You can look at category, again, broken out into certain industries, specific topics, and then, of course, the type that you might be looking for. So again, a ton of great content to take in. Hopefully that everyone on the call is going to be able to at least register and join us for a little bit or all of it. It's going to be such a great event. We're really looking forward to it.
If there are a couple sessions that you do find are overlapping, generally all of our sessions, except for the hands-on training, which I don't even know if they're doing that this year, they'll be recorded. So after the conference is done, it's usually a few weeks later, those episodes will be available for you to review.
Awesome. Perfect. And that's it for us. So we can open it to, if there's any questions for us, for Fraser, or for Jason, we'll kind of go from there.
Hey, it's Jason here. Can you just remind me again, what are the ones that we need to sign up ASAP so that we get in, they don't fill up? I think Tableau Doctor, and is it just those sessions there that have a limit?
Tableau Doctor and brain dates. So
Brain dates.
just to give a bit of a heads up on that one. So I just looked at it. It's the ones with the Zen Masters. So I never knew that Zen Masters ran brain dates, or maybe I just didn't notice it in the past. But yeah, there are a couple of really popular Zen Masters that are running some brain dates, and those ones are starting to fill up. Those ones are they're usually geared towards visualization best practices.
Thank you.
And that's a good point, because even in past events, there might be a great speaker that's speaking, and those things will fill up because we get 20,000 people. It's tough to put them into breakout rooms. So this year, being virtual, you can take in anything you want, except for like she said, the brain dates, the doctor sessions, and some of the other sessions that you'll see. I'm noticing here a virtual photo booth. That's going to be interesting. Can't wait to see what that looks like.
A picture of the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, exactly. If there's any other questions, Jens, I'll pass it back to you and can give everyone some time back if needed.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for speaking. Thank you to all speakers, and thank you, everyone, for attending. This Tableau user group meeting will be posted, is recorded, so it's be posted online. And then the last thing before we sign out is, if there's any Tableau users out here that are looking for work or have any capacity, please feel free to reach out to us at Onware, as we're currently looking. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. My email is hins.chan@onware.com, or you can just post in the Tableau user group. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll give you 10 minutes back in your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.